Vijay, please also share the YouTube link.
Yeah, we are on.
Yeah.
Riti, you can start. We are on.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whichever part of world you are. I welcome you all to this very interesting meeting which the Rotarians on Internet has organized. First of all, let me welcome you all on my behalf and on behalf of the board members of ROTI and all the members of ROTI. A very warm welcome to our Rotary International President nominee, Gordon, who has very kindly consented and joined us to share his views with us this evening for me and afternoon or morning from whichever part of world you all are. Vijay, can you please spotlight Gordon, and can I make a formal welcome to him? Welcome, Gordon, on behalf of ROTI. Friends, today we heard a very sad news of passing away of past Rotary International Director and Trustee Sushil Gupta. He was also nominated as President. So can I all request you to be in silence for 30 seconds to pray for the departed soul? Thank you all. Friends, before we formally start the meeting, first of all, I would like to thank our ROTI board member, Callan, for helping us connect with Gordon and inviting him, and Gordon had kindly agreed to be with us. During the course of the meeting, everybody is muted. Only those who are required to speak will be able to unmute themselves. I'm sure you all have a lot of questions for Gordon. So please feel free to type your questions in the chat box, and after his talk, we will take those questions. To make a brief introduction about ROTI, can I request Dick Callan to play the ROTI video?
With ROTI, I've got friends and networks around the world like I do with my local Rotary Club here in Zambia.
Hi, I just love ROTI because of the international acquaintanceship. I just love it. Thank you.
Friendship with some Rotarians led to doing joint grant projects with our club and district.
So the first convention I got to go to was in Chicago in 2005, and I was just amazed at the international aspect of conference, and joining ROTI was just one way to keep that ongoing.
I joined ROTI way back in 2007-8, and that was the time I got my first matching grant partner through ROTI.
Writing and implementing grants elevated me to the position that I am now, an Assistant Regional Rotary Foundation Coordinator for Zone 10A.
I have made some great friends over the years in ROTI.
and it grounds me in Rotary. It's great to see what happens everywhere else in the world.
So I've got the best of both worlds, and every once in a while, we actually learn something.
Thank you, Callan. Before I invite Gordon to speak, let me give a brief introduction. Gordon is a member of Rotary Club of Queensbury, Lothian in Scotland. He's a dental surgeon by qualification and by profession. He is a Rotary member since 1984, and he has been vice president of Rotary International in Great Britain, RIBI. He has also served Rotary International as director and member and chair of several committees. He is currently an advisor to the 2022 Houston Convention and chair of the Operations Review Committee of the Rotary International. Gordon and his wife Heather are major donors and benefactors of the Rotary Foundation. They are also members of the Bequest Society. With these few words, may I request Gordon to address us.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Girish, and thank you everybody for such a warm welcome, and thank you for that introduction. It's a great privilege to be part of your meeting today. I'm a great believer in the opportunities with which the internet presents us in Rotary, as well as a great believer in the concept of Rotary fellowships. So thank you for allowing me to be part of your meeting. At the outset, can I echo the words of Chair Girish and say how sorry I was to hear this morning of the news of the passing of Sushil Gupta. I knew him well. I worked with him on many occasions, and I was thrilled when he was selected as RI President nominee in 2020-21. Like all of us, I was sad when he had to step down as a consequence of his ill health, and perhaps it was a measure of the man that he took that very difficult decision. I'm sure that Rotary in India are mourning his passing today, but be assured that Rotary worldwide is doing likewise, and may his soul rest in peace. It gives me pleasure to bring you the warmest of greetings from Scotland and from the Rotary Club of South Queensferry, which, as you may know, is situated just northeast of our capital city on the banks of the River Forth. When your board member, Callan Dick, initially asked me to address you today, it was suggested I talk about my vision for Rotary. And of course, I am only too happy to do that. But at this stage, I would apologise to those of you who have been following me around the world on a virtual basis over the past few weeks and have heard me speak of my vision for Rotary before. It might not surprise you that my vision for Rotary does not change from meeting to meeting or from week to week. And so for some of you, much of what you hear over the next few minutes, you will have heard before. And I've said before, and it's the case, that in truth, my vision for Rotary is relatively simple, in that I want to see us grow and continue to change and innovate, to transform, to improve, to reflect the times in which we live, especially this pivotal time as we navigate our way through and out of the current global pandemic, and in doing so, better serve those who need, desire, and deserve our help. There can be little doubt we live in challenging times, and I hope you don't think that I'm exaggerating when I say things might never be the same again. But that need not be a bad thing. I'm a great believer in looking for positives in any negative, and there are surely a great many positives coming out of the current challenging and some might say negative situation. Positives like the opportunity for us to stop, take stock and reevaluate our priorities in life and in the society in which we live. Positives like the opportunity for us to stop and take stock and reevaluate the way we operate in Rotary at every level, from club through district to zone and on to Rotary International. Positives like the fact, had it not been for the current situation, I may not have been able to join you today. Now, by the time I've finished, many of you will be considering that to be a distinct negative, but only time will answer that question. We've heard the phrase build back better a great many times during the current crisis. But it's important we don't just build back better, but that we build forward better. We're changing faster than ever at the moment in terms of embracing new technology and new ways of thinking. And I think we've probably seen the sort of changes that would have taken place anyway over the next 10 years happen within the past year or so. Because this pandemic has given us a great opportunity to draw a line in the sand and review our entire method of operating. And I believe that as we come through it, there is a big conversation to be had about how best we can build forward better. Some of the most exciting things about Rotary just now are the opportunities that come as far as the way we operate, and much of that has come from our readiness to embrace technology. Something that you as a fellowship have been doing for many years since your inception back in the mid-1990s. These opportunities will help all of us as we try to improve Rotary and steer it into the future. If I may, I'd like to give you just a few examples of how I see us achieving that improvement and how already we can learn from what our collective experiences have shown us over the last year or so. Firstly, at district level and beyond, my own, and I'm sure many other districts' training and leadership development events have seen record attendances. Our district training assembly here in Scotland and the PET sessions held during the pandemic were the best attended in years because they were held online. We're also seeing that virtual events allow us to reach a much wider audience than previously achieved due to the savings in cost and time factors. Look at the last two RI conventions, some of the highest attendance at RI conventions ever, and all because they were held online. We've seen things like the various webinars and online meetings that are springing up, allowing new Rotarians and existing Rotarians to become better informed of the wider benefits of all that Rotary has to offer beyond just the club. And our personal Rotary development can be significantly enhanced with the greater use of Rotary's online learning centre. We can take more ownership of our own learning, which leads to a better exchange of ideas and sharing of best practice, and therefore more impactful service. Virtual working also allows us to make more effective use of our volunteer leader time. District governors and assistant governors can and are now visiting clubs via Zoom and other online platforms rather than travelling all around their districts, saving them a lot of time and trouble, not to mention the cost savings and benefits to the environment through less travelling. And there are other interesting aspects of what can be enhanced thanks to these new ways of doing things and new ways of thinking. For the very best of reasons, the Rotary Foundation discontinued funding for the traditional group study exchange programme a number of years ago. I believe the times in which we live would be an ideal time to resurrect group study exchange on a virtual basis. Last summer, I worked with Rotarian colleagues in Hong Kong on the idea of virtual group study exchange. We launched it at an online forum in Hong Kong in which I participated, and there's been a lot of interest in the concept. Virtual group study exchange, or as we've christened it, virtual Rotary exchange, VRE, it wouldn't be Rotary without an acronym after all, would be inexpensive in both time and economic terms. Young people, often juggling a career and family life, are reluctant or just unable to commit to being away from home for 4 to 6 weeks. And so, if they can't travel to be part of a group study exchange, why can't we bring group study exchange to them in the comfort of their own homes and offices? We can connect young, like-minded professionals across the globe and allow them to learn something of each other's culture and vocation. We can allow them the opportunity for personal development and for greater world understanding, two of the things for which Rotary prides itself. Virtual Rotary exchange is going to be different. It's going to be interactive. It's going to be exciting. And we can make it happen. I would love to hear what you think of the idea, given your interest in online working and technology. And I would love to see it trialled and ultimately rolled out on an international basis. But probably the most important thing about Rotary after COVID are the opportunities that come at club level. Last year, after moving to online meetings, my club held a monthly conversation which featured people like RI President Shekhar Mehta, RI President-elect Jennifer Jones, and immediate past President Holger Knacht, to name but 3. We had up to 250 people attending from as many as 20 different countries. People connected. They shared challenges. They supported each other through some hard times. And in some cases, clubs in different countries, through meeting in that forum, joined together on collaborative projects. It was a great use of the technology and a great way to embrace the challenges placed on us by the pandemic. And it could never have happened on a face-to-face basis. So the challenge now, of course, as we move into what people are calling the new normal, is that we learn from the way we've done things over the course of the pandemic and don't just rush headlong back to doing things the way we used to. In my view, going forward, we probably need to keep a mix of virtual and in-person meetings. Frankly, I don't see why things like club and district committee meetings can't be held online permanently. But maybe, in time, we do need to get back to seeing each other in 3 dimensions at club meetings, rather than in just a small box on a computer screen. And I see the Rotary Club meeting of the future being a hybrid, blended affair, where those of us who can and who want to meet face-to-face do so, but where we provide the opportunity to those who don't wish to do that or can't do that to join in the meetings on a virtual basis. This is certainly what's happening in our Rotary Club here in South Queensferry. We had our first hybrid meeting last week, and it was surprisingly successful. Hybrid or blended meetings mean that inspiring speakers are now much more accessible to engage with a wider audience beyond just existing Rotarians, and can help embrace potential new members on a variety of topical issues and interests. They can also help us engage with former members who may be interested in returning to Rotary now that they can do so from the comfort of their own computer screen. And of course, there is also so much more opportunity now to embrace new club models that don't need to be bound by style of meeting, by geography, or by suitability of a venue. These new club models allow us to engage with a different audience, an audience that maybe doesn't want to meet every week, an audience that maybe doesn't want to have a meal, an audience that maybe doesn't want to meet face to face, but would be happier meeting in a manner that suits them. That audience has every bit as much of a social conscience as me and you. It wants to do good in the world. It just wants to do it in a different way. And we have a unique opportunity just now to engage with that audience and have them join us. Because membership is the lifeblood of our organisation. It's always concerned me that so many new members choose to leave Rotary so soon after joining. I was staggered to discover that 1.3 million people joined Rotary in the 10 years to July 2019. Yet over the same period, our global membership fell by some 20,000. Something is wrong somewhere, and the problem doesn't lie with those who leave us, it lies with us. We must reduce this turnover, and so the retention of new members through proper engagement with them is very much part of my vision for membership growth. I know there will be a great base to work with following President Shaker's Each One Get One initiative this year. And I look forward to keeping each one we get this year in 2023-24. And of course, Rotary fellowships like yours has a vital part to play in retaining and engaging with members, as it gives them the chance to be something that is part of special interest to them and will draw them ever closer to the organisation as a whole. If I might turn to another element of my vision for Rotary, allow me to say something about our own charity, the Rotary Foundation. With Africa joining the continents that are polio-free, and with supporting the environment being added as an area of focus, our reputation, our ability, and the opportunity to do impactful service has grown substantially, and this requires a strong foundation. It saddens me that around 2/3 of Rotarians make no personal contribution to the Rotary Foundation, especially at a time when the demands on it are increasing. Past President Ravi Ravindran, a man for whom I have the utmost respect, recently tweeted, "Not everyone has the resource to make a large contribution, but every Rotarian has the ability to make some contribution to our foundation." And I'm inclined to agree. Therefore, as President, I hope to support the Rotary Foundation, not only to increase giving overall, but to persuade each Rotarian to contribute something to what is, after all, our foundation. My friends, during the 37 years I've been a member of Rotary, I've seen the innovation and changes we've made with my own eyes. I've seen what works, and arguably more importantly, I've seen what does not work. And I believe that insight will prove invaluable. All of us in Rotary can be very proud of our heritage and where we've come from. But please remember, we need to capitalise on the amazing opportunity we have right now to take a greater leap and move faster forward into a world where we must remain willing and brave enough to continue to change and to innovate. Change can be daunting, but it can also be exciting and energising, and we must embrace it and thrive on it. If you might now allow me to change direction ever so slightly. We're all very good about discussing how Rotary should operate, how meetings should run, how we might attract new members, how we might form new clubs, how we might increase support to our foundation. But in the time remaining, I would like to say something about the why. I think it's vital that we never lose sight of why Rotary exists. It exists to help people live a better life. It exists to make the world a better place. But how do we do that? And that question is not the easiest one to answer. I would suggest that at the most basic level, the good that Rotary does is it brings people hope. Hope for the future. By bringing people hope, I honestly believe we can go a long, long way into making major inroads into strife and, as a consequence, help create a more peaceful world. The last century, the 20th century, saw unprecedented technological advances. But sadly, it also witnessed on a massive scale destruction and human suffering as a result of 2 world wars, of smaller wars, and of other atrocities still continuing into this, the 21st century. We only have to look at recent atrocities across the world where so many people have lost their lives in the name of war and terrorism. In this, the 21st century, as Rotary moves forward in its 2nd century of service, will we be spending as much time and energy on human understanding and relationships as we do on technological developments? I sincerely hope we do, because mankind must find a way of living together in peace and in friendship and with love, if we're to leave a proper legacy for our children and our children's children. And if we are to truly bring hope to our fellow man and woman. The hope that is freedom, the hope that is healthy children and adults, the hope that is clean water and sufficient food, the hope that is education, human rights, dignity, clothing, housing, and concern for mankind. But most of all, the hope that is love. As I draw these remarks to a close, can I once again remind you that as far back as 1966, the late US Senator Robert Kennedy delivered a speech that included the words, "We live in interesting times." I believe 55 years later, there is little doubt we live in interesting times, very interesting times. But I also believe we live in exciting times, times when we really can transform the way we think and operate on every level for the betterment not only of Rotary, but also for our planet. Ending poverty and protecting the planet depends on wide-scale transformation, made at the personal, the community, and at societal levels throughout the whole world. Rotary International is ready to embrace change and transform. I am ready to embrace change and transform. I hope you all are too. Thank you for allowing me to be with you today. Thank you for everything you do for Rotary. And more importantly, thank you for everything you will do in the future. I look forward to working beside you. Each and every one of you is a credit to the badge that you wear. And I am very proud to belong to the same organization as you. Thank you very much.
Wow. Wow. That was quite an address. You talked about hope, what the hope Rotary and Rotarians bring to millions of people around the world. The hope we brought to so many children with our polio campaign, the hope which we are bringing to people around the world with providing them with drinking water, pure drinking water, the hope which we are giving them by providing medical facilities to people who do not have. That indeed was very hopeful and very forward-looking address, Gordon. And we live in very interesting times. We are just recovering from COVID, and all membership-based organizations have faced challenge, and I'm sure Rotary too has faced challenge in these last 2 years of COVID. So in your experience and in experience, since you have been working with the board closely in your previous avatars also, so do you think, I mean, we have had e-clubs. So do you think the model of e-clubs, and now with COVID around the world, will that model of e-clubs will be more productive, which will bring more members to Rotary?
I think we will probably see an expansion in the e-club model as we go forward, because people have over the last year or so become much more comfortable with the idea of video conferencing, and be it through Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever the platform is. But I think we have to make sure that we make Rotary available across the whole spectrum. And while there are people that would be very comfortable with an e-club, there are people who are still very comfortable with the more traditional club. And then there are people who are comfortable with a model in between. And my view or my vision would be that in every area we can present that opportunity to people who have Rotary in their heart to do their Rotary in the manner that is comfortable for them. And I certainly would hate to think anybody would be excluded from Rotary because they could not find a club, a way to practice Rotary that wasn't suitable for them. So I think going forward, we're going to see an expansion of the e-club. I think we're going to see an expansion of the passport club that we hear a lot about just now. And I think that's a good thing, because I think that's going to make Rotary more available for people who want to do service, who want to do good in the world, and who want to make the world a better place.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there is a very interesting question. The question says that how do we bridge the chasm from the message of flexibility and brand messaging to the club level? So many at the club level are still not hearing us.
Well, there are none so deaf as those who will not hear. And sadly, some people don't want to hear the message. I think it's really important that we all keep telling the message and telling the story. Many years ago, and I know there are some people on the call remember when I was president of Rotary in Britain and Ireland. I was president here in 2004-05, the centenary year. And one of my messages at that time was the need to change. Here we are 15 years later, we're still talking about the need to change. But at that time, I was encouraging clubs to change so that they would become more attractive to another demographic. And I think over the last 15 years, my thought process has changed away from encouraging those clubs to change, because some of them are very comfortable the way they are. Instead of changing encouraging them to change, encourage them to form new groups in their area. And the first question or the first comment that many will give you back is, but we don't want to, reduce the pool of people who might join our club. And if we start another club, they might not join our club. The fact is, in many cases, people would not have joined those clubs in the first place. And so you're not actually, taking away from the opportunity for your club to get new members. What you're doing is giving an opportunity for Rotary to have more members, and therefore more hands can do more work. So I think it is simply a question of continuing to get the message out. I think it's easier just now to get the message out because we have so much more in the way of online working, and people like myself and Jennifer and President Shaker, we're in the fortunate position of being able to visit all over the world at the drop of a hat. And so we can continue to get that message out. But we do have to work at it. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Rotary being a global organization, there is no single method which fits all sizes. I mean,
Exactly.
the way to reach out has to be adapted in each geography. Probably in a country which is as large as India or Australia or United States, maybe the regions have to have some specific messages, specific ways of working forward. Okay, Patrick says that new clubs are important, but it is easier to have new blood rather than flog the old dead horses. That is Patrick. That is Patrick. You also mentioned about past President Ravi saying that 2/3 of our Rotarians do not contribute to the Rotary Foundation. So there is always a challenge in the minds of Rotarians. That's whether do you contribute to the local club projects or do you contribute to the Rotary Foundation, and the money goes. We all know that money goes to right places, but the important thing of Rotary is that you are able to do service projects by your hand, which gives so much of satisfaction. And not every club is able to do a district grant or a global grant. So how do you explain this dichotomy to an ordinary Rotarian?
Well, again, as I say, my desire would be to see Rotarians make some contribution, and everybody can make their own level of contribution. It's not a question of saying everybody has to make a certain contribution. But from my point of view, one of the reasons I support the foundation is that the Scotsmen have a great reputation for being thrifty with money. Nothing is further from the truth, I might say, but we do have this reputation. And one of the reasons I think it's so important to support the foundation is that our money is so well stewarded by the Rotary Foundation. We know that every penny, every pound, every dollar, every cent, every rupee that we send to the Rotary Foundation will ultimately be used on projects. And I think that's very important. We have that knowledge that the money is spent very wisely. And of course, at the moment, the money that we put towards the polio campaign, we're having the luxury of it being doubled by the generosity of the Gates Foundation. And so all these things make it very appealing. And that is one of the reasons I support the foundation. I take your point about service, and I am a great believer in Rotary service. We are, as your virtual background says, we are people of action. We do things. And one of the things I suspect that has been lost in Rotary over the last few years is the very fact that we are people of action, and that we do get out there and do things. And we are a service organisation. So it becomes a question of balance. But I would still say that I do believe it's important that we make some contribution. There are many clubs in parts of the world who are quite willing to participate in foundation grants and so forth, and yet they're making a minimal contribution to the foundation. I think it's important that we all make some form of contribution, recognizing that not everybody is in a position to make a huge contribution. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, contributing to foundation is important, and how we have seen the power of working globally. I mean, our polio eradication, we are this close to eradicating polio.
We were this close at the start of 2021. Now we are even this close. The idea that we've only had 2 cases worldwide in the whole of this calendar year is very exciting. And I think we really are standing on the threshold of something big. And that is a measure of how working together, working globally, something huge can be achieved.
So a lot of people are wondering, I mean, polio is the only corporate project of Rotary. So after polio is gone, 2021, 22, 23, whatever, what next?
Well, I think, first of all, it'll be slightly longer than that, because as you know, we have to have a 3-year period before we can expect certification of polio eradication. And so from that point of view, it might, we're getting close, but we do still have a little ways to go. I think it's very important at the moment that we don't spend much time thinking about what's next until we finish what's now. And what's now is eliminating polio. I'm sure that there will be people thinking about what might be another corporate project, or indeed, do we want another corporate project after polio, or perhaps do we want to take a little bit of a breather before we start something quite as ambitious as that again. But the important thing just now is never take our eye off the ball that is polio. Let's get polio finished before we start thinking about anything else.
Okay. So you mentioned about Rotary making some important contributions in the field of environment also with this new area of focus. So do you think there is scope for Rotarians to contribute a lot in making a difference in our environment also?
Well, I think there is. I think there is an opportunity for us on a personal level to become ever more aware of our environment and of the damage we might be doing to the environment. And of course, I think at a club and a district, at a zone level, there are great opportunities for us to participate in projects that will help the environment, whether it's cleaning beaches or cleaning riverbanks, or whether it's planting trees or planting mangroves. The opportunities are out there. And of course, now that it's become a 7th area of focus, and that sustaining the environment is going to be able to qualify for grant funding, we can apply for grants to fund projects. And so the opportunity is there. We will not solve the problem on our own. It's a global issue, climate change and everything else. But I think it was Mother Teresa who, when once was told that all she did was a drop in the ocean, she said, yes, but what is the ocean made up of, if not many, many drops? And so if we can put a few drops into the ocean of sustaining the environment, we will have achieved something. Right,
absolutely. Gordon, you are advisor to the Houston Convention, and there is a question for you that will the Houston Convention be hybrid? As you mentioned that the last 2 conventions have been very successful online conventions.
I think it's fair to say that going forward, all Rotary conventions will have a hybrid element to them. The great hope, and it's certainly looking increasingly likely, is that there will be a face-to-face component in Houston, and just as there will now be a face-to-face component with the International Assembly as soon as January. I think it's important that we make it available online to those people who have problems traveling, and those problems traveling can be as a result of this pandemic, but they can also be for other reasons. People, may find that they cannot afford to travel to a convention. So why should we deny them something of a convention experience if we can now utilize the lessons we've learned as to how we can do things online? But I do think there is still a great argument for the convention being face-to-face. It brings people together. There is much, much more opportunity when you're with somebody on a face-to-face basis to sit down in a corner and discuss something that might then develop into a project that might then develop into something very major. And good though online meeting is, sometimes we miss out on that one-on-one little private conversation that spins out of something. And so I think it's fair to say that going forward, all conventions will have that hybrid element to them, that people will be able to participate and will be able to see and hear much clearer what has been going on than perhaps they have in the past. And that's a lesson we have learned from the sadness of not being able to meet face-to-face in Honolulu and not being able to meet face-to-face in Taipei.
So, but we haven't heard anything from the convention committee about being a hybrid convention, or how do you register only for the online part as yet? So, are the plans not yet formed?
I don't think that opportunity hasn't presented itself yet, but be assured that that will come.
That will come. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Absolutely. So we look forward to that opportunity, and of course, many of us are looking forward to the opportunity of meeting face to face in person, also to so many Rotarians around the world as we were used to. There is a question which says that will the Rotaractors also be included in the membership development part of Rotary? I mean, we know that Rotary is going to charge them membership fees from 1st of July next year.
Yeah, well, and of course, Rotaract are part of Rotary now, so why wouldn't they be part of the membership development? And my first contact with Rotary came through Rotaract. In fact, when I was just in my very early 20s, I joined the Rotaract Club of South Queensferry. And sadly, that club did not last for very long, and so I found myself at the age of 26 joining the Rotary Club. So I'm a great fan of Rotaract, for many reasons. Not the least being that Rotaract is already truly inclusive. And Rotary are having to work to catch up with Rotaract in many ways. It's interesting to note that Rotaract have a 51% women membership. Rotary worldwide still only has a 24% women membership. And one of the interesting things, and I have said this before, but one of the interesting things to note is that Rotaract doesn't talk about women Rotaractors. Rotary still talks about women Rotarians. And I believe the reason that Rotaract does not talk about women Rotaractors is that Rotaract truly has equality. And Rotary has some way to go. And I long for the day that people stop talking about women Rotarians, because that will be the day that Rotary is truly equal and has true equality.
Absolutely. And we look forward to that day. There is a question about your opinion about Rotary Peace scholarships, and do you really feel that they contribute to bringing peace in the world?
I do, because I think it's important to realize, what do we mean by peace? And a lot of people just assume that peace means we're not fighting each other.
Absence of war.
But of course, true peace is so much more than that. You know, peace is the things I spoke about as what we can give people hope for. Peace is education. Peace is clean water. Peace is all those things. And if we can provide that, then we will have a more peaceful world. And so, again, I've been aware of and familiar with the peace program almost from its inception. And some of the peace scholars that we have had have gone on to do great things, not necessarily in the field of abolishing war and eliminating war, but in the field of true peace. And it's important just to fix in the mind what is true peace, and it's so much more. Absolutely.
And we continue, Rotary continues to be, I believe the peace program of Rotary is absolutely unparalleled, and I don't think there is any other program which is so specifically concentrating on people working to create peace in the world, ocean by ocean, as you just quoted Mother Teresa's example.
Yeah.
I will. This is the last. I know you have to go. So one last question is,
Okay, thank you.
what is any update on Rotary International's efforts to address the pandemic?
Well, it's interesting, and I saw that question pop up. I was going to speak to that even if you hadn't brought that up, Girish. But it's interesting. I'm missing a meeting at the moment. To be with you, I'm missing a meeting of the COVID task force of the Rotary Foundation, and they're working very hard just now on a positioning paper that will lay out exactly what Rotary is trying to achieve in the pandemic. One of the things, of course, is that we are stressing the importance of vaccination. And we have a duty to be ambassadors for the vaccination campaign. It's vital. The only way out of this pandemic is going to be through vaccination. Unfortunately, this is not a virus that's going to be going away anywhere soon. And so we need to ensure that we all get vaccinated where we can. And also, Rotary has a role to ensure the equitable distribution of vaccinations. Of vaccines, because there is a great inequality at the moment as to the availability of vaccines. I heard our former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, who is a fellow Scot, speaking only this morning on the BBC News, saying how concerned he was about the stockpiling of vaccines that had been going on in certain parts of the world, and that these vaccines now were approaching the end of their useful life, and yet there were still people in Africa, the people on the call from Africa, people like Patrick Coleman will be able to bear this out, that the vaccination rates in Africa have been so low because they've just not been able to access the vaccines. And so we have a role as ambassadors and to stress the importance of the vaccination campaign. And we have also, as you know, we've already spent many millions of dollars of foundation money in supporting COVID relief efforts and in supporting COVID vaccine distribution, etc., etc. So there's a lot happening, and we are very aware of the need to take a stand and to help lead the world out of this pandemic.
Just to add 2 words on that, you are aware that India is probably one of the largest vaccine producers for COVID and or other vaccines also, and probably in a short time we would be reaching a situation of vaccines being surplus in India. So can we influence? I mean, Rotarians all over the world are so influential. Can we use some of our diplomatic skills and maybe encourage Global Vaccine Alliance (GVI) to also include COVID vaccine in its portfolio, and a country like India and Rotarians from India can help in procuring some of the vaccines for the less vaccinated countries, especially Africa, as you just mentioned.
I'm sure there's a role for us there, and of course we are actively lobbying COVAX and people like that to ensure that happens.
So thank you, Gordon, for being with us and for patiently answering all the questions. We truly appreciate. Before we end, can I request our ROTI Director, Callan, to propose a formal vote of thanks?
Thanks, Girish, and thanks, Gordon. First of all, for finding time in what I know is a very hectic diary to talk to us today. We've heard some of your vision there, building forward better. Just as we are going to get a new Doctor Who at the end of this year, we might see the GSD regenerate into a new form that's the same but different. We've talked hybrid meetings. I've been in both sides of those now, and I think it will take some bedding in, but a lot of clubs are ready for them. And I was surprised as we were starting to go back, how few Rotarians only wanted to go back to the old face-to-face. There's a big appetite for a mixture out there. Now, the others may have guessed from the accent that I'm from the same district as Gordon. And for as long as I've known as long as I've been in Rotary, Gordon has been the person to go with any problems in Rotary, be it personal, club or district. He's never pushed himself forward, but he's always been there, and his advice has always been thoughtful and pretty well always correct. So you might say at this stage, I would bring out that old phrase that Rotary is in a safe pair of hands, but I would actually disagree, not because I doubt it, but because Rotary shouldn't be a safe place. Rotary should be a challenging place. Above all, as Gordon said, it should be an exciting place. So with Jennifer Jones next year and Gordon McInally the following year, I think we're in that place. So I would ask you all to show your appreciation to Gordon tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Callan, and thank you so much, Gordon, once again. As they say, all good things do come to end, and we are coming to end of this lovely evening we had with Gordon. Maybe sometime later we will request Gordon again for his time, and I'm sure he would oblige us with some time again. It has been a great evening. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Gordon, for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.